Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our small footprint. My name is Nyssa, and if you're new here, we are a family of 8 who live off-grid in Australia. Today's video is going to be a bit of a rambling chat and a wander. This is my Sunday chat video, except it's Monday, because I just have to be in the right frame of mind to do a chat video, and I just wasn't quite there yesterday. So today is Monday, but I'm doing the weekly sort of a chat and catch-up. So, a few things to discuss and share and talk over and get feedback on. And that sort of thing. So it's gonna ramble. I'm gonna squirrel. It's just gonna be all over the place because there's just so much going on. So what will we say first? Okay, the mugs and stuff. I got the rest of the stuff I needed to get some samples done of those mugs, and then we decided to rearrange slightly again inside to try and make it a little bit more ergonomic for doing all this sort of stuff. And of course, anyone who's rearranged anything, especially in a small space, means that there's more mess before it gets better. And at the moment, it's at a point where I still can't do anything. I'm still reorganizing, and I found all my seeds while I was doing it. So then I started reorganizing them and inventorying them, and it all just cascaded to being not quite ready yet. So hopefully this week I will have samples of those mugs to show you. We badly need more mugs as well, which is the whole point that I was going to do them originally, is because I already owned most of the equipment to do it, and the kids badly needed mugs. So generally speaking, around Christmas or Easter time, I buy them a set of mugs. So I buy 6 mugs that are somewhat personalized so that the kids can have their own mugs for hot chocolate and things like that. And it's really hard to find 6 personalized mugs for 6 kids. I can't buy in their names because the names are too unusual, but even just with their initials, especially if I'm doing it online, and I only shop every 6 weeks, so doing it in store is difficult as well. So actually the whole reason I actually looked at doing mugs in the first place was because we use mugs, and then it sort of snowballed to being able to do the squirrel and the rooster and the progress not perfection and that on mugs and other things, and we'll see how we go. But the kids badly need mugs because they're drinking hot chocolate every night at the moment, and we're having to wash mugs twice a day, sort of to have enough for coffee and tea during the day and them to have hot chocolate of an evening. So, so I should have a sample of the mug up on Instagram or Facebook, or I'll put a community post or something here on YouTube when I get it sorted. It should be this week, but don't quote me on it because I've been saying the website should be done soon for how many months now, and I still haven't got there yet. So we're getting there, slower, progress not perfection. So we're slowly working our way through that. So I will have the mugs and stuff sorted. I haven't sourced a US place because I'd imagine that shipping from here would be pointless. So we'll have to do a third-party one for the US for people in the US to purchase from. But I really wanted to do handmade type, post it myself sort of stuff from here in Australia. And there might be some bits and pieces that I make here in Australia that can be posted, but I just don't think mugs are really a good idea to post, to be honest. So we'll see how we go with that. That is on the cards. What else is going on? It has been cold. It has been -2 overnight. At the moment it's okay in the sun, but I'm not standing in the sun because I'm filming. So it's about 13 out here, I think, at the moment. So in the sun it's perfectly pleasant, but in the shade it's a bit hard. It's probably not cold enough for a beanie for most people, but because of the nerve condition in my face, it really doesn't like cold breezes and stuff hitting my face too much, so I find that the beanie really helps with that, though I do need to knit myself a new one. So has been cold, which means that the gardens are all getting brown and dead, which is pros and cons because it's somewhat easier to manage them. But we're still in a lot of discussion about what we're going to do for this spring. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to discuss with you what I've been discussing with my friend Bobby and also other people in the local area. Now, a lot of our garden is just near a giant gum tree. I was unaware, apparently it's common knowledge, but I was unaware that gum trees, because they have fairly extensive root systems and they're a drought tree, they suck up moisture and nutrients from quite a distance around the roots. When I was Googling something, a lot of places sort of said like the roots can go 100 feet. I don't know how accurate that is. We have a giant gum tree here that is right next to where the garden space is. It wasn't this big when we moved in, and obviously it gets bigger as it grows. Now, gum trees are called widowmakers because they drop branches in high winds, but sometimes they just drop branches for no reason at all. understand that in some situations means that it's worth removing, but for us, we live in Australia, gum trees are part and parcel of living here. But also, it's a wonderful shade tree. It houses a lot of native wildlife. We have lots of bird nests in there all the time. We get cockatoos, galahs, koalas, all sorts of things. And also, Darryl and I are not capable of removing it. We do not have the skill set or the desire to learn the skill set and attempt to remove it. So we're not going to. We will get a quote to cut it back, but I don't know that we could afford it. So I'll turn you around and show you it in a minute. But I'm going to try and I've got some drone footage too. So Bobby was trying to figure out exactly where everything was on the property. I'll see if I can find the drone footage, and I'll mark out the garden space and where things are as well. But all that to say that the garden space in the middle that we just redid, which we just did the beds and everything with, did really well the first year we planted it. So this was new. We planted it. We did hugelkultur style garden beds. We built them up with cardboard on the bottom and then lots of sticks and wood and all that sort of thing. We did a lasagna method above that. So we did sugarcane mulch, molasses waters, mushroom compost, chicken manure, cow manure, pig manure, soil, all that sort of thing, with a good layer of compost on the top that we were planting into. And then that year that we did all that in preparation for planting was fantastic. I'm going to stick some photos in here of what the garden looked like that year. We had 200 plus tomato plants in there, and it went great guns. It was fantastic. It did really well. Now, the problem is that this year, nothing grew. We could get nothing at all to grow. I did amend it slightly, but nowhere near to the extent that I had amended it the year before, because the year before was the establishment of the bed, whereas this year was just supposed to be a top-up of the beds. So what I think has occurred is that while the beds lay fallow, and of course that's not a good thing either, we should have had cover crops in, but it's not something that I've managed to work into our rhythm yet. I'm attempting to add these things as I go, learn more and execute more and things like that. So the gardens got dry. They got a little bit hydrophobic because there was nothing planted in them and things like that. But the soil is dead. There's nothing to it. There's no matter in it. It's dry. It doesn't hold water. It's sandy. There's no nutrients in it. And so everything we tried to plant out, even with minimal amendments, nothing grew. And then we had the slaters, and I'm guessing that part of the reason the slaters were eating the fresh stuff, because slaters don't normally eat fresh stuff, they normally only eat decaying stuff. I'm guessing, like, this is all hindsight, all talking it out with you and hopefully getting feedback and all the rest of it, because I'm still learning too. We had that massive, absolutely fantastic year where we grew pretty much every tomato we needed for a year, and we grew 40 odd zucchini plants. I'll put the zucchini plants in here as well because that looked fantastic, and we had melons and potatoes. It was a wonderful garden year that this year in spring that's just gone, I was going to show you how I did it all because it was all fantastic. We succeeded, but nothing worked. So I didn't end up showing you much in the way of how we gardened the first year that was successful, because nothing was successful this year. So what I'm guessing happened is that in the interim period, the gum tree during the drier period and all the rest of it has sucked everything out of these beds, and there's nothing left in them. And the little bit of amendment that we used to just top up the beds wasn't enough to get everything going. And then I think I just squirreled there and started saying something and then forgot. So the slaters, I think the reason the slaters were eating the fresh growth was because there was no decayed growth in there, because the soil was dead. There was nothing in the soil that they could eat at all, which would, like the dead stuff that would be their preferred. There was no roots in there, the wood wasn't decaying properly, nothing like that. So instead they came to the surface and they ate all the fresh stuff because that was the only food source. So we had this slater inundation. We have had bush rat issues and field mice issues as well. There was a big plague of them last year, and it has carried through to a degree. So we had that as well, and nothing worked. So now becomes the big decision on what to do for this year. This next few months is the best time to be prepping things because it's cool. Once it hits full spring, full summer, it's too hot to do a lot of things, but also it's too late. You need to get it done beforehand. So the plan is to try and get this stuff sorted now. So wait a sec, let me just turn you around for a second and show you that tree. So I am standing in the back of the where the shade cloth is, so the back of the garden that's shade clothed in, that's fenced in, so it's fenced all the way along to keep the wildlife out, and that tree there is right at the front of that garden space, the garden space that did really well and failed this year. So that tree is right there at the front of this garden space. That little bit of green, there's a chair fallen over because we've got a branch there we need to pull down, but that front green stuff just there is the asparagus bed, which is doing okay but not fantastically. So maybe we need to relocate that as well, since it's so close to the gum tree, but it seems to be carrying its own. So I don't know, I've got some more crowns to grow, so maybe I'll put the new crowns somewhere else and we'll compare the difference between them. But so this garden here, just abysmal, just nothing. The soil is horrible, and everything else. Now we've just gone to all this effort to put the paths and everything in though, while we were trying to figure out what we're doing, because we were going to replant the winter veggies in here with some amendments, but I'm second guessing myself on that as well, because I'm trying to figure out what we're going to do. So the thought patterns at the moment are that maybe I can't do in-ground beds in this, especially in this particular section. Maybe the beds here, they will never work as shallow in-ground market garden style beds, which is what I was hoping for. The aim of this whole garden space, this huge garden space, was to have it as like an in-ground market garden style garden, because the point of these gardens is to produce food for 8 people. So I really just wanted simple in-ground beds and use the best use of the space and all the rest of it. Anyway, it may not work. So at the moment we're figuring out what we're going to do. Because I've just done all the paths and everything in that, and that space is really set up nicely with those beds and everything else, I'm going to try a few different methods, I think. So what I want to do, I think, for that section there is build above ground beds, have some separation from the native soil, whether we use weed matting fabric or whatever else. I understand that this doesn't allow the fabric to, like the good biome to grow, but nothing's growing up from that sand anyway. That's the whole point. The sand is sucking everything and it's not improving. And I understand that improving soil takes time. I don't know if I've got 10 years of adding stuff to gardens and it not doing anything in me. So what we might look at doing is taking up the topsoil that's in these beds, laying something down, whether it's a gravel or a biotech fabric or something, I don't know, like the weed matting fabric, or I'm not real sure yet. This is all still debate and feedback is great. And raised beds. Now I'm looking at bought raised beds versus building some of our own with roofing iron, if we can get roofing iron cheap enough. Roofing iron can be sometimes really hard to come by at a decent price, so we will see. We won't do timber because I don't want to use treated timber and we have issues with termites, so I'm not going to use untreated timber in here either, unless I was using cypress or something and we can't afford that kind of thing. So it'll probably be roofing iron that we use with some cypress as corner supports and things like that, and build those beds up a good 40 centimeters, because if you look behind me here, these beds here were bought metal beds and they're empty at the moment. That's what I'm going to put some of these winter veggies in, but these beds grow quite well, and so do the herb beds, which are also in these metal beds. So maybe just that extra depth is beneficial, but also they're at a bit of a distance to the gum tree as well, so that could be part and parcel of it. So the plan is, I think at the moment what I'm thinking of doing is creating raised beds, at least 3 rows of them in that section there, perhaps leaving some the middle herb beds and the live edge bed and stuff, maybe leaving them for flowers and stuff, and maybe some native flowers and things like that, but building above ground beds for there. Sorry, kids interrupted, which when that happens I lose my train of thought too, so this is where even more squirrels happen. So maybe something like these metal beds. You can buy them from Vita XL. You can get a 6 meter long one, 45 centimeters high, it's like $200 though, and I'd need quite a few of them. So if I can get cheaper roofing iron instead and build my own, that would be better. But cutting roofing iron shorter is cutting it horizontally is really just horrible. You can use a an angle grinder, but you go through the blades really quickly, but cutting it horizontally is simple. You can tear it, you just snip it and tear it, but cutting it, yeah. So anyway, I'm still debating. We have time, so I'm not going to do anything drastic to begin with. I also will try and get someone out to have a look at this tree, because maybe cutting it back would be good. It would stop the branches overhanging the garden, which is where they tend to fall, but also the less branches, the less it's going to be drawing, theoretically. I don't know. I don't know. I'm assuming that this might be my big cause, but as I said, apparently it's common knowledge that gum trees near gardens is a bad thing. I wasn't aware of it. This gum tree was left when they cleared the space. So when we bought this block, we got someone out here to clear a space, and we weren't here at the time. We basically said we wanted about 1,000 square meters cleared, and so they cleared the space. But there's half a dozen trees that were left in the middle of that space that I'm guessing were of a size that were too large to knock over with whatever the equipment was that they were using to clear, and that gum tree was one of them. I'll put a quick photo in here of what it looks like, the gum tree looked like when we first moved in. It was a lot smaller, and if we had have realised, we could have adjusted where we were putting the gardens, perhaps, or we could have knocked it down, maybe. But it is a lovely tree. I know the whole widowmaker, they drop branches and everything else, but it gives lots of shade to the pig pen, and gum trees are just stunning trees. So I don't know. Anyway, we'll get off the topic of the tree. So, yeah, so the other thing I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to buy some half IBCs for wicking beds. So that's the other thing I'm going to try as well, and put them, I haven't decided where I'm putting them yet, or how I'm going to do it, because I have the trellising for my tomatoes in here, and realistically tomatoes should go in the ground with the trellising, so that you've got because if they're up on, like, say, an IBC and stuff, you've got that extra height that's going to make it difficult to reach if you put the trellising on the IBCs. But if you put the trellising behind the IBCs, then you lose height because the plants are being planted higher. And I don't know, as I said, this is going to be very all over the place, very much just I'm not sure what I'm doing yet, and I'm trying to figure it out. So we're going to get some IBCs and try some wicking beds somewhere. We will probably do some more hydroponic beds with the Kratky method. I will show you that when I'll show you how that bed's going out there. I still have all the seedlings that badly need to go into something, but we haven't figured out what we were doing with the dirt out here. But I think I'm going to use these beds here. I'm going to top them up. I've got some amendments and just some standard potting soil that I can mix together, some worm castings, some rooster booster, some seaweed, and some plain potting soil, some standard type potting soil. I might just top these up a little bit because they've sunk, obviously. Top them up a bit, and I've got the lettuce and the cabbages and stuff to plant out. The problem is that this bed at the end, the one here, I just harvested all my Jerusalem artichokes, and I've replanted any bulbs for next year. So that one's full of Jerusalem artichokes, but the other three don't have any bulbs in them that I'm aware of, so I can use those three. There is also an empty bed in the herbs section, I think, but not really, because I think it's the marshmallow, lemon balm, peppermint bed. So whilst it's empty at the moment, it won't be empty come spring, and I don't know whether I want to disturb it other than to mulch it now by putting plants in there, because then those things might not come back, and I like to have them come back. So there's that. Now, the other thing that out here that we've had the issue with is, you can see that we took all the netting down. So we did have netting over the whole space, but we had problems, that tree dropping branches, leaves, it sagged, and it wasn't working. Right, so we still have the shade cloth over this one. I can't see what I'm looking at, over the back one, but nothing over this section. Now, this has pros and cons. We find that the bees will not come through the netting, so having no netting there means that the pollination should be higher. But it also means that the guinea fowl fly in here all the time. The roosters can get in here if they want, because we've got some free-ranging roosters at the moment. And that kind of thing. So anything that's in here at the moment is going to have to be covered, which is fine, because most of the stuff that I would be planting at this time of the year doesn't require pollination anyway. But come summer, that's going to become an issue, which could be another reason to use things like IBCs, because you could easily put covers over those. That would be fairly simple to create covers, or even the raised beds. It'd be fairly easy to create covers for those than it would be on normal beds, though we do have normal bed covers. I haven't got one easy to show you, but we use metal posts, some polypipe, and some insect netting over those on long strips. So anyway, we're still man, this is all over the place, but I'm trying to figure it out. And I think part of the problem is that my brain's going a mile a minute trying to figure out what I'm going to do and planning it out, and I just don't know how to make it work. And I'm so disheartened by the failures of this year that I can't fathom the thought of failing again next year, sort of thing. So I'm trying to, but I don't really want to put excessive amounts of money into it either, because we don't have excessive amounts of money, but also we put so much money into it and got nothing this year either. But it's a really hard one. Okay, so I think I've covered everything that we're planning for this. So we're going to get some IBCs. I'm still trying to figure out what to do with the beds. I think the gum tree is a significant problem, but that could mean that part of the garden isn't affected by that gum tree. Like, the further parts of the garden may be fine. It may just be this main section here because it's the closest to that gum tree. That could be part of it. Because I'll show you the potato beds, which is where we've grown potatoes a couple of years in a row and had success with potatoes. We get a little bit of potato scab because we've grown them here twice, but other than that, it's fine. All this shade cloth and everything we're in the process of removing and stuff, and this netting that's over the potato beds we need to replace. But the roosters have been getting in here, so this was 4 different beds, but the roosters have been getting in here and turning it all over. But we grow potatoes quite well in here, so my thought is that I'm going to use this again, probably not for potatoes because we've had the potato blight, maybe for corn or something, I don't know, but this will work well for something. And I think perhaps the reason it works is because it's so far away from that tree. But the problem with this section is that we haven't got any fencing up yet. So you can see in the back there, that is the current resident of this space. He hasn't got a name. I reckon we need to name him. He is a very tame rooster. He does not attack. He will not. He lets you come up fairly close to him. And when the other roosters come around, he hides because he doesn't want anything to do with them. So he may be a rooster that we keep rather than cull. And he's a pretty grey mottled rooster. And he's been in here turning all this soil for me this whole time. But this section of the garden is disgusting. So I get embarrassed every time I show all of this because we expanded and then had so many failures that we didn't do anything more. So all these paths are overgrown. All the cardboard we collected to line the beds is everywhere. The greenhouse that fell apart, I haven't pulled apart yet. So it's gross. This space is just horrific. We've got a gum tree sprouting here that we need to cut down. So anyway, this and all this it's all overgrown. Anyway, there's no fencing. Here, we've got the bottom fencing, but no wire. So to be able to use this space, we would need to line it with wire or with shade cloth like the other space to deter. It doesn't stop them from getting in, but it does deter them. It doesn't stop them from coming into this space, but it does stop them coming in as much. And we will cull the roosters sooner rather than later, hopefully. We ordered a new knife to come in and the knife hasn't come in yet. So we need to wait for that to come in before we can give it a go. So the plan is to cull them once we get the new knife in and give it a go. Though we have been somewhat unsuccessful at processing our roosters before. We will see how we go. We can't have as many wandering around as we do because they do too much damage if they get in here for a start. But if they get into a group, then the children have to be careful as well because roosters in a group can be aggressive. So this grey one is fine. You can do whatever you want with him. There's a couple of others. There's one that comes and chats to me. You hear him all the time when I do the voiceovers. He gets a bit ruffled up when you come near him. But there is a couple of older ones that they used to live in the pig pen, if you've been watching for a while. We had half a dozen roosters living in the pig pen and they never left. They just picked through the pig manure and lived a nice happy life in there. We introduced 3 more roosters to them because we had some extras that needed to go because we were adjusting the chicken pens, which I'll go out and show you shortly too. And when we introduced those 3 roosters, that little grey one was one of them, to the 6 older roosters, all of a sudden, all of them decided they didn't want to live in the pig pen anymore. And now they roam the property. And whilst I kind of enjoy having them roaming the property, they can be aggressive because they're roosters. And we can't risk them getting into the chickens either. because we don't want them to injure the hens. So there's that issue as well. It's complicated and difficult, and we need to cull them, and it's... Anyway, so where have I just tangented to then? Roosters. Give me a name for that rooster if you think of one. That grey mottled. He's grey and brown and mottled, and he's quite sweet. Then what I was going to show you, the cracky bed. I was going to show you how that was progressing. So let me go there and show you that. All right, so this place still hasn't been cleaned up very well. We have the cracky bed is going perfectly. So everything is growing nicely in here. Silver beet, some lettuce and things like that. Now, I did have the other seedlings. Some of them, we lost a few of them because we got all this rain. And of course, they've damped off because all the rain came in here. Now, I came out and emptied them out regularly, but yeah, too much rain. We had some hard frosts. Some of them will recover. Some of them have been damaged beyond repair, so I need to get my chives out and my herbs and stuff out. We've got some bok choy that's doing well. There's some more kale, then some herbs and spinach and stuff that all need to be planted out. We've got more cabbage and sprouting broccoli. It all needs to go out in the garden. Even some of the tomato seedlings have survived. Obviously the shade cloth has helped them to cope with the frost. A few of them died off in the frost, but a few of them have survived, so I'm just going to keep on cultivating them as I go. I might feed them some of the nutrient solution from the cracky bed, and we might just see if we can keep them going, and I don't know, we'll see what happens. But so all the seedlings are doing well, but they need planting out. So that's the biggest thing at the moment, is that we need to get these out in the ground. We did lose, as I said, we lost a few to damping off and some frosts, but the kale and that's doing well, and most of this lettuce is still doing okay and everything else. So, and that cracky bed is doing wonderfully. So we could set up more of these, but realistically they need to be in a roofed structure, because the problem is that with all that rain, the nutrient solution ends up... all those lovely roots. The nutrient solution ends up topping up with water, which is going to throw the ratios off, which isn't too much of an issue with leafy greens, but is an issue if you were growing like fruiting things in there. The leafy greens will tolerate it a little bit, but it's added water to it, which has changed it'll change the pH and it'll change the EC and everything of the nutrient solution, so it's not ideal. So realistically it should be somewhere that's roofed rather than open like this, so it kind of feel like it's not worth setting up more of these until I've got that happening. But maybe this is another thing that I need to promote more, to just help with that as well, with trying the different methods. So the other thing we've been working on is the chicken pens. So we've split up a whole bunch of the chickens, the breeds that are relevant. As I said, we haven't culled the roosters yet because we haven't got that knife that we ordered in. But so we've still got a bit of an excess of roosters at the moment. We split the Hamburgs out. Last time I filmed, I'm pretty sure I had the Hamburg split out, but we didn't have the Wyandottes split out. So we've got the Wyandotte split out as well now, but it looks like we've got 4 roosters in there and 3 hens. Why is it always the higher ratio of roosters when you hatch chickens? It's always the way. So it looks like we've got 4 roosters and 3 hens. So this is still a construction site, so I'm still picking my way through stuff. So we have these guys. Now let me turn you around. Pen built. We got a roosting platform built, but we haven't put the nesting boxes on it as yet. But we haven't got eggs yet either. They're not quite the right age yet. But so we got these Wyandottes, but there's 4 roosters, 3 hens. So we are going to have to cull 3 of the roosters, which is just the way it is. So they've got this pen here now. So we need to bring some straw out. We haven't got water. We've just got bowls out here at the moment because the water, we have the feeding ports to go into a feed bin like we have for the other chickens, but we haven't got the feed bin yet, so we're just coming out. We feed them, check scraps and everything else twice a day for that. But so they have their own pen here now too. We built that nesting platform. So this is their pen here. And we have put shade cloth over the top rather than the netting. We have found that the shade cloth, not only does it shade them, but it has worked out easier to keep the tension on it than the netting. So we've been using the shade cloth. So this was the Hamburg pen, which I'm sure I showed you last time. We did have 2 Hamburg hens, 2 roosters. One of the hens passed. I'm not entirely sure why. We have no idea why. But these are such pretty birds. So we have, and we also have our little Aracuna in here at the moment. But it means we've got 3 roosters to 1 hen. So we're going to have to sort that out as well. Now, the hen there laid 1 egg the other day. So she laid her first egg, which was nice. So that pen there. So that was the pen that I showed you last time. Then we got this pen, and then we have got this one almost spanned out. So this one is going to be a large one because what we're doing is we're going to be splitting the Muscovies. So at the moment, we hatched out a whole bunch of Muscovies. And this pen hasn't been finished yet. So this is the last pen to get sorted, and this is where all the Australorps are. So all the Australorps are in here, and it hasn't been sorted yet. We need to finish this pen up for them. So this piece of roofing iron needs to be removed. It needs to be wire put up, and the roof needs to be fixed so that we can get these ones sorted and the roosters relevant culled. So that's that pen and the other duck pen to be sorted. We've got 2 of the Australorp rooster excess in here because they were causing problems. So they are in this small pen that we use for that purpose, is to put roosters or chickens that are needing health or whatever in there. So the duck pen, what we ended up after we hatched all the ducks was we ended up with 4 Muscovy drakes, and there's only 7 girls. So the second batch of Muscovies are finally starting to have some issues with the first batch. My goodness, it's noisy out here. So we're going to split them. So part of the reason I wanted that other second pen was because we're going to put an IBC pond in rather than just these swimming pool ponds. Nothing's focusing real well, but if I open it, the ducks will... You see. Hi, boys. Hi, boys. No, stay in. Stay in. Okay. So we only have the ponds in there at the moment, so that's fine, but we want to set up the half IBC as a pond so that I can use it to reticulate through flood and drain beds to grow greens for the ducks. So at the moment, this pen is not suitable for that because there's nowhere to put the beds and the pond in such a way that I can have them reticulated within the U shape that we're building. So the other bed is going to have a long wall on the inside the U that I can attach the beds to for the greens, and then that way it's within the U, it's protected, and there's enough room in that pen for the pond as well. So we're going to split 2 and 2 of the drakes out of the duck pen so that they'll be in the 2 separate pens. Now, other than that, the other thing I wanted to mention too was that I was surfing Marketplace the other day and I saw a trailer with a big steel frame on it. It's 2 meters by 2 meter trailer with a big steel external frame on it. It was down on the north side of Brisbane and I wasn't going to travel that far, but my cousin's husband was absolutely wonderful and offered to, well, I asked and he offered to go and check it out for me, and he went and checked it out and was happy with it, so he bought it for me. So I paid him for it, obviously, but he did the purchase for me down in Brisbane and took it back to his place because I'm not due back into Brisbane for another 3 or 4 weeks. So it was, he'll look after it for me until then. Now, the reason I bought it was because it's a big 2x2, it's got a roof and side posts all in steel. The plan is to turn it into an insulated trailer. So the fridge is holding temperature at sort of 8. which is okay for fruit and veg, but not good for keeping any sort of meat or leftovers or anything else in. So it's working for the moment. Over winter we're fine, but once it hits summer again, it's not going to work for us. And I contemplated purchasing new fridges and all the rest of it, but I just couldn't make a decision about what I wanted, because ideally I didn't want another fridge. What I wanted was a cold room. But then there was the whole discussion about if we built a standard solid cold room, we'd probably need a slab on it, a slab to put it on, and then it wouldn't help with the whole transport of the groceries. So then I thought, well, maybe a insulated trailer would work, a refrigerated trailer, because then I could take the trailer to get the groceries, we could back it in and we could park it and we could sort it here. So this particular trailer, 2 by 2 meters, steel framing, going to turn it into an insulated trailer. Theoretically, I will eventually install some refrigeration on it, probably a CoolBot controlled mini split or a window rattler type thing. It's only going to be 2 by 2, so it won't need extreme. It's only 1.5 from the floor to the roof. I haven't seen the trailer in person, but James measured it for me. It was 1.5 from the floor to the roof, so it's not quite tall enough for me to stand in, but it's tall enough that I could have shelving down the sides and the back, and I could crouch in to pull boxes in and out or send a child, and that's fine. Plenty of room, much larger than a fridge. So, to put, and the whole point is that if I can finally get these gardens sorted and then the fruit trees. So I didn't mention the fruit trees. The fruit trees, I'm waiting on some pruners to come in the mail, because I need to prune, especially the citrus trees that have that growth coming out of the rootstock, and do a winter prune of the fruit trees, and we still haven't managed to mulch and stuff around them either yet, so that badly needs doing over this winter. I will fertilize them in spring, but I need to get them mulched and pruned and sorted before then, so I need to get that done. But the whole point is that within a few years, theoretically, we will have an influx of apples and things like that, and when we have that, then we're going to need to be able to store them to a degree, while we're processing them and things like that. That is the hope, that is the dream, is that our fruit trees start producing and we have an overabundance of fruit and are required to then store it and process it and things like that. So, we can't do a cellar because the ground is sand and then clay. You can't dig down to do that. And I think that the mobile fridge unit is mobile trailer, insulated trailer. We could put solar panels on it and hook it up here. A small generator maybe, if that's what we want to do to run it while I'm in Brisbane. We'll see how we go. It's still a plan in progress, but now we have a framework to be able to do it. So purchase that trailer and then we will see how we go from there. Figure it out. Everything is still a work in progress. So we will sort that out, and then I'll keep you updated, but I'm not sure exactly what's happening yet. We have to buy the insulated panels and stuff, and they're about $140 a sheet. We're probably going to need 8 of them or something as a minimum to do it, and that's going to be a little bit further off because I just paid for the trailer, and it's all just works in progress. So, but that's exciting. That's exciting to have that forward movement on doing something for refrigeration without buying a new fridge, when that's not really what I wanted. I didn't really want a new fridge. I wanted to be able to have something larger like a cold room, but then I didn't know how I was going to manage it, and then finding this trailer worked. So there we go. Also, with the trailer though, we will have to adjust the house fence because the fence line doesn't allow for bringing the trailer into the yard at the moment, and what's the point of having a refrigerated cold room if you have to leave the yard to get to it? So we will have to reorganise the yard a little bit so that it can be backed in and parked next to the patio kitchen so that it can be accessed from in the kitchen as well, sort of thing. And we still need to build that pantry and roofing over the kitchen there too. So there's just it's a lot. There is a lot, but we are slowly but surely making progress towards what we need to get done, and in the meantime we're managing regardless. So I think that's about it. I think this is so long. So I think that's about it. I had a rooster coming up behind me. Was he thinking about go away? So yes, we will figure it out as we go along, and we'll sort it. And I'll keep you updated as I go. But I think that's everything. This video has ended up far too long, and I will see you on the next one. Thanks, guys.